The Secrets of Technology is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give. You're listening to The Secrets of Technology. Hi, I'm Dom Bettinelli, and you're listening to The Secrets of Technology, where we discuss the technology news that's important to you from a uniquely Catholic point of view. And joining me today on the panel are Joanne Mercier. Hi, Joanne.
Hello, everyone.
And Pat Scott. Hi, Pat.
Hello there.
So I want to begin this week with another one or two of my tales of woe. I've had some serious tech problems this week, and I want to share them with you in the hopes that maybe that might enlighten you or amuse you or horrify you, depending on where you sit. My first one concerns a previous pick of the week, an app called Apptamer. And if you don't remember what it is, it's a Mac app. It's a little utility that it's designed to prevent any one app from taking over the CPU, the guts of the computer, and monopolizing it and slowing everything else down. And when you do a podcast and you're running Skype and all these other apps, that's a real issue. So I've had it running on my Mac for a long time now, like over a year now, and it was really useful. I'd have background apps like browsers that want to running YouTube things in the background that I didn't remember, but it would stop them and all kinds of stuff like that. So it was really useful. Well, in the last month or so, I started getting this problem where my computer would just kind of slow down, like grind to a halt. Things would take forever to click and to drop, and nothing was responsive. The CPUs weren't being pegged. I don't know what it was. And it all came to a head the other day. I was trying to record podcasts with Jimmy Aiken, and I was tearing my hair out. And frankly, I don't have much hair to tear out at this point. So you can imagine how frustrated I was. And I even reboots didn't fix it until I finally was able to narrow it down to two possible apps. So I think it's one of these two apps. I've removed both of them. Apptamer, and the other one I removed was iStat Menus Pro, which is a utility that monitors how the system is running. I kind of think it wasn't iStat Menus, but I'm going to leave it off my computer for a little bit, just for the safe side. I might put it back in a little while and see if the problem comes back. I really hope it doesn't, because it was really annoying to remove it the last time it happened. But that's my hope. So I think it was Apptamer. It might not even been Apptamer. It might have been even something like something else it was interacting with. So that's my first tale of woe. So if you're using Apptamer, watch out for it. If you start to have this issue, that might be your problem. My second tale of woe concerns my trusty MacBook Pro, 2015 MacBook Pro Retina. That was my primary computer for a long time until I got this iMac that I'm using right this very minute to record. But I still use it a lot, especially when I'm traveling, which I don't do much of these days. But I was going to need it next week, so I pulled it out, started getting it ready, opened it up, and what am I presented with but a flashing question mark on a folder?
Wah, wah.
Yeah, that is a very bad sign. Yeah, hard drive failure. So I rebooted into recovery mode, which you do by turning on the power and then holding down Command R. And that brings up recovery mode, which means it's booting off. It's downloading a very basic Mac OS over the internet and running off of that. The hard drive is completely out of the equation at that point. And so I tried running disk utility, disk first aid, nothing. Not able to partition, not able to do anything. So it was totally kaput. So I ended up, I did several other things. So I ended up, because I needed to have this laptop next week, I ended up having to get a new one, which is not something I was intending to do right now. So I got a new MacBook Pro 13-inch, the model that came out in May. It really annoys me because I know those Apple Silicon MacBooks are coming, and I would have preferred to get one of those, but no. So I have a new MacBook Pro 13-inch, and which is nice. It's got the touch bar and all that sort of stuff, which I'm going to be talking about later. But it was just annoying. But the good news is I think I was doing some research today on iFixit.com. They have repair guides, and the replacing the SSD, the solid state drive on this is actually pretty straightforward. So I think I may be able to resurrect this computer and maybe pass it on to a child, in the lucky child in the family. Or somebody who needs it. So those are my tales of woe with tales of hope attached. So, but let's get to today's main topic, which is one of the things that is really computers have always promised us is that they help us become more productive. And now that we're all working from home, or most of us, we want to keep organized. We want to keep on target. We want to keep on task. And one person once, I remember a boss telling me once that he says, "Dom, you're the most organized person I've ever met, because I've always have these lists. I have my task list, my project list, and all these things." I said, "Scott, that's because I'm the most disorganized person you've ever met. I'm coping. I have created systems in order to help me remain on target, on task, to get my things done, because I spent too many years not getting my things done and being disorganized." And so to-do lists and project managers are great ways to help us to do the things we need to do, especially when we're not very good at doing it. So today, I thought we'd talk a bit about two categories, and I kind of divided them up into two categories: is to-do list apps and project and task managers. And the way I'm thinking about it is to-do list apps are for a bunch of things that aren't necessarily connected, whether it's a grocery list or shopping list, or it's a bunch of individual tasks or things that I just got to get done, that I check them off and then they go away. Whereas a project manager are for bigger things, not just necessarily work projects, but sometimes for personal projects as well. So I have to fix the shed. So in order to fix the shed, I have to break it down into tasks. I need to measure the doors, and I have to figure out what color paint, and I have to go to the Home Depot or Lowe's and shop for the things. So it's a series of tasks, and you could think of a lot of different tasks, projects and tasks that you have in life. So I wanted to talk about those two categories. But first, I want to talk about, like, Pat and Joanne. Do you both rely on tasks and project managers and to-do lists, and do you prefer analog versus digital, or what? What do you think, Joanne? What do you think?
I would have to say my life sort of revolves around Evernote. I've just used it for, I'd say, about 15 to almost 20 years now since it came out. Yeah, Leo Laporte, the great guru, was promoting it, and I said, okay, I need something to keep me in line. So I've just sort of invested, even to the point where I pay for it.
Yeah.
So everything is there. I've got recipes, I've got work to-dos, I've got genealogy notebooks. I have almost everything in Evernote. And that seems to be my catch-all for everything. Does it do everything I want it to do? No, but at least it's all in one place.
That's an interesting thing, because I've used, I think I listened to the same Leo Laporte discussing Evernote back in the day, and I started using it about the same time. But I never thought of it really as something to help me do to-dos, although you can create checklists in it. And that sort of thing. And actually, I have to be honest, I do use it kind of as a to-do list manager now that I think about it, because it does have reminders and that sort of stuff. So yeah, you're right. It is a kind of to-do list manager.
It's a catch-all, because I can put scans through it. I can put voice memos on it. I can write the stuff myself. The only thing I don't use it for is actual writing. So if I'm going to do a writing project, I tend to use an app called Scrivener.
Right.
And that, because it really hones in all these little, I can put thoughts on little cards, and then I can move the cards around. And
right.
But yeah. Evernote's my catch-all.
I call Evernote my second brain. It is my storage space. It is a vital part of my tool set too. So, but that's interesting to think of it in those terms. Pat, what about you? What do you use to keep track of
Well,
things?
I've tried several things over the years. Like y'all, I think Leo Laporte and I had a great relationship when he told me to go get Evernote. And so, yeah, I used it for several years. And then I'm the type of person that tries a lot of things because I have lots of clients that may have different needs. So I tried the Microsoft Notes for a while. I imported all my notes into all my Evernote notes into there and worked with that. And after about 3 months, I gave up and I went back and paid for Evernote again because I had actually dropped my subscription. And maybe it was a little longer than that because it had run out and I hadn't renewed it. So I went back to that. However, what I use it for is I'm browsing the net, I find something, I tag it in there so that I can use it when I'm troubleshooting. So I'm using when I'm researching. That's what I use it for. I've never used it as a to-do list.
Right.
I except for, okay, here's the 10 books that I've got on my list of things I want to read next, or the movies, or clip a review and put it in there for the next time I need to find a new series to watch. That kind of to-do.
Yep. As
far as to-do list, I've tried several. Most recently, I had tried Microsoft To Do when it first came out, and it was kind of clunky, so I gave it up. I tried Wanderlist, which one of my friends just swears by, and I liked it, but it didn't quite snag me. And I've been through all of this using Apple's reminders, and it's gotten a lot better. But due to talking about this podcast, I went back and looked again at Microsoft To Do and another one that was very, very popular called Todoist. Mm-hmm. Now, I realize that these don't tend to live in the Mac world, but
they have Mac versions.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
And iOS versions and Android versions and Windows versions. So most recently, I've been playing more with the Microsoft To Do and the Todoist. And of the two, I've come back to the To Do from Microsoft because it does some things that I can't do in the Todoist.
Now, Microsoft To Do is Wunderlist. Microsoft bought Wunderlist and transformed
they incorporated
it, right?
some of the features from it. Yeah, but originally they had a to-do that was not Wanderlist.
Yeah.
But then they incorporated a lot of they bought it, incorporated a lot of the features, and that's the one that I like, that I've been liking a lot this last week.
And that comes as part of Microsoft 365, Microsoft Office, what they used to be.
Yes, yeah. And you can get an iOS app. You can run it. On a Mac, you can run it on an Android. I haven't tried Linux, but if you can get to the web, you can do it there.
Okay.
And so it's free again.
Yeah.
I don't have to pay for it. And anyway, that's what I've been doing. And we can talk more about features, but that's kind of where I am. Is I try lots of things.
So we could talk about the features of the ones that we're talking as we go in. Let's first talk about why not use the stock apps that come on our system. So on iOS and Mac OS, it's reminders. On Microsoft, I would guess I would call Microsoft To Do the stock app, since if you have a Windows machine, you probably have Office, and so you probably have Microsoft To Do. Is that correct? Or is there another app that might be this considered the stock To Do app on Windows?
Well, see, it wasn't part of Windows for so long, or pardon me, it's not part of Windows. It's really part of Office.
Right.
So it's not really a stock app for Windows because you have to pay for Office.
Right. But most Windows machines...
But you can... So the question is the To Do, I think, is kind of separate. I think you can get it free on all of the platforms, even if you don't have a Microsoft Office subscription.
Okay.
But it did not come originally as part of a stock app.
Okay. Because so does Windows have a stock To Do list app?
No,
okay.
Not really. They had a notes, a notepad,
right,
but they really didn't have a To Do thing. Outlook had a To Do list.
Okay.
And that was part of that's what I would call their stock app, was the original To Do list in in Microsoft Outlook.
So why not use the stock apps on whether Mac or iOS or Android or or Windows and go for a third-party app? I mean, that's really the perennial question for a lot of these things, whether it's mail or browser or the contacts or that sort of thing. Why would you go beyond the stock app? I think as someone might ask us. Joanne?
I think nowadays it probably is better than it was before. When we all started in some of this, reminders and mail was very clunky.
Yeah.
And it's become refined as we've gone through the years. I just started using reminders because I'm getting older and I need something quick in the car by saying, S lady, do this.
Right.
So I'm using it now in iOS most of the time just to give me quick reminders. But I think that's why I went to a third-party app, because they were more refined, they did more, they had better features, and in the case of Evernote, just tied everything together.
Right.
The other to-do list, even before reminders that I was using, which was an iOS app, is called Clear.
Yep.
And I was using it as my grocery list, basically because, and my husband says this, you like it when you swipe it, it goes ding. Yeah, it does. And I'm a musician, so every time it goes ding, it's very satisfying when you're going through the store and you hear that audio reminder. But I think that's why I can't stand mail. Right. I don't care if that drums me out of the Apple Club, but
makes you part of the club.
Right. I can't stand it, but Outlook was another. I didn't care for Outlook either.
Yeah.
So I had to find a third-party client, and I had one, and they got rid of it, and then I went to another one, and
right.
So I think we go through this. The more sophisticated we become, or the more in tune we become in how we need apps to help us with workflow, that's when I think we go back and forth, and then we sort of settle on the things that work for us. I'm not opposed to trying something new.
Yeah.
Like I took a look at AnyList, which sort of looks interesting. I know we're going to talk about that, but So I said, okay, I'll take a look at this one. I'm not opposed to it. It's just I'll probably go back to Evernote and Clear.
So Clear hasn't been updated since the beginning of 2019, and that's always an issue with third-party apps. But if it works, it works. So that's a thing. I think part of the attraction is, as you mentioned, kind of tangentially, is the design of Clear. It's attractive. It's easy to use. It's very clear. Exactly. I think reminders, the built-in apps can be fine. And one of the things you mentioned is the integration with the tentpole features of the operating system, the things that Apple can do or Google can do that third parties can't, which is access certain things. Like, although you can use Siri. Nothing. I was waiting for everything to beep at me. You can use her to add reminders to a list in the Reminders app that then you can move to another app that I use called OmniFocus. So there's actually a way to use it. It's kind of clunky. And now you've got Workflow, or Shortcuts, actually it's called, which goes directly even. So there are ways, but it's not as elegant as just using the built-in app. So I agree with that.
Well, I was going to say the other thing is yes, when the stock apps first came out, they were text only. They didn't sort. They didn't have any way to do priorities. They didn't have any way to do, embed an attachment. And so as time has gone on, the Reminders app and the Notes app in iOS has gotten very good.
Yeah.
And the same thing, but a lot of the things, that's the reason I didn't use the stock one, is because I couldn't prioritize, I couldn't sort, I couldn't do the searching, I couldn't attach. Now that that's happening in the stock apps, then that makes more sense for new people. Now they might really want to try it and start there.
So there's one app that I want to recommend right off the bat that I use that still has features that the stock apps don't have, is the app called Due, D-U-E. And the best part of this app, the whole reason for this app to exist, and I don't use this for all of my to-dos, but I use it for very specific ones because it nags me. It nags. So here's what happens is you can set up reminders either one time or repeating, and I especially love it for the repeating ones. And when it's due, it'll pop up a notification. And you ever notice, like, sometimes you have, like, do this thing, and you're like, well, I'm right in the middle of this other thing. I can't do it right now. I don't want to complete it, And sometimes you can hit snooze, but even that isn't exactly what you want to do. You don't actually want to snooze a thing. But what happens is that you, from the notification, you can either say, I've done it, mark done, or you can say, come back in 10 minutes, come back in an hour, come back in 3 hours. Like maybe I'm at the store and I have to take my medicine or something. I'll be home in an hour. Remind me in an hour. And every 10 minutes or every hour or whatever it is, it will come back and nag until I've done it. And frankly, I need that for certain things. Like I have to take a medicine at 6 o'clock every night. And it's like, oh, at 6 o'clock is the worst time. I'm making dinner. I'm running here and there with the kids, and then it's like, I got this food on the grill. I can't go get my medicine, and just beep at me in 10 minutes. And so it will do that. And I don't even have to tell it to remind me in 10 minutes. If I don't check it off, it will come back in 10 minutes. And then it will come back in 10 minutes after that. It will keep coming back until I check it off. So that is worth the cost of this app right there, is the nagginess. It's available on iOS. That's the version I have. They just updated the Mac version to make it more like the iOS version. And I don't know that I need the Mac version. I'm fine with the iOS version. It's $7 on iOS. It's $15 on the Mac. I don't feel like I need to spend the $15 to get the Mac version. And it also works on the Apple Watch too. So I get the notifications on my Apple Watch. So that's due, and it works on iPhone and iPad. So that's that one. What about you? What about you, Pat? You mentioned that you've settled on Microsoft To Do, but you also mentioned Todoist. What is it about Todoist that was interesting to you?
Well, it felt real clean and easy to use, and I could set up projects or I could set up individual tasks, and I could do subtasks and, subcategories, etc. And it had gotten lots of good ratings. I wanted to try it out, and where it finally cut me that I said, no, for what I need it for, this isn't going to work. I wanted to do like a group of tasks, more like a project, a group of tasks that I did for people's computers when I'm cleaning them off or checking for malware, etc. And so I would come up with one list, and I wanted to duplicate it so that I could check it off as I was going down the machine. And it was terrible in terms of trying to be able to copy a list from one name to another or move it. I mean, it would let me move the tasks, but
Right.
no, I didn't want that. I wanted to copy them, create a new set of, a duplicate set. And that's where it finally got me.
Okay.
And Microsoft To Do, I can do that. I can say, I want to take this list and replicate it, and then I can go check off those. And the next person, I can duplicate that base list and check them off. So that was one of the problems. And then the other thing that Todoist wouldn't let me do easily without paying for it was to export and import. And
Right.
there's times that I need to export it out or, save it in a printed file or something. And unless I wanted to pay for it, and it was $35 a year, which is a little bit more than I wanted to do.
Yeah.
I said no. So the Microsoft To Do is free, and I can copy things from one list to another, and I can export. And now you can create new lists, but you can't really subtask tasks. So I can have one list and I can have a bunch of tasks, but I can't say, well, that task now is broken up into smaller tasks.
Okay. Which app was that?
That's in the Microsoft one.
Okay.
And Todoist would let me do that. It would let me say I could have here's a task, and now I've got 3 tasks underneath that, more like a project manager. But I don't need that.
Yeah, it does sound like more like a project manager. And it is like you said, they have a free tier, which is limited, although 80 projects is a lot of projects. But premium tier, for a lot of other features like labels and filters and things like that and reminders, that's $3 a month. So that's
Right.
something to consider.
But I do know it's real popular, and it seems to get a lot of good reviews.
Yes.
So somebody was looking for those features that they didn't want to go into a full project manager. That might be a good intermediate.
Yeah. So, Joanne, you were saying that you were interested in AnyList. That's one that I've discovered in the past year or so.
Mm-hmm.
I was looking for a grocery list app for my wife and I to use. We'd used one for a while called Grocery IQ, which was okay. It wasn't a great app, but it did. You could share a list between the two of us, and it would. If you put stuff on it from your grocery, like you could scan barcodes and would often have the item. That was really good. AnyList doesn't do that. I wish it did. But what AnyList, I looked at a whole bunch of other apps once because Grocery IQ just wasn't. I forget what it was. It wasn't working anymore, or they were going to stop making it. But whatever it was, we had to find something new. And I looked at a bunch, and AnyList kept coming up. People kept talking about it, and so we start with a grocery list, and we share the list between each other. And yeah, you can't scan the barcode, but it's pretty easy to add stuff to it. You just tap Add Item. It will categorize things. So if I put Worcestershire on my list, it knows to put it in condiments and dressings, for example.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, so it's smart about stuff like that. I think it's probably going off of the aggregate of all of the users, how they're categorizing things. And you can have private lists. You can have a list that's just for you. But like, here's some lists my wife and I have. We have a grocery list. We have a spices list because we buy spices from Spice House. That's a little tip. That's a really great place to get spices. A liquor list because in Massachusetts you can't buy your beer and wine and liquor at the grocery store because Massachusetts is stupid.
Yeah, you got to go to the packy.
Exactly. Because we're behind the times, because we've got to subsidize the middleman. Never mind. I'm sorry. I'm off target. I have like a CVS list, but then I also have like an office and school supplies list, or a vacation list. Things if we go on vacation, things we got to make sure we bring. But we share some of these lists. We have them separate. And it does a lot more than that. I mean, I'm just barely scratching the surface. It can store recipes. It can do meal planning. I got Paprika Recipe Manager for that. I didn't need a recipe manager here. But if you're looking something in that vein, and because
that's what attracted me to be able to put. Now I have them in Evernote, but they're just all over the place. So doing something like this with recipes where I could actually look at it and say, okay, let me see what ingredients I need and I'll put them on a list. But it looks like you might have to pay for that.
Yeah, I think you do. And frankly, Paprika Recipe Manager, which is not a to-do list, but is a great app, I really recommend, is really great for that. It's especially great for getting recipes into it. You can import it from web pages really easy. It also can build a grocery list, and it does meal planning too. And I kind of prefer it for that. But yeah, if you want to have it all in one place in your to-do list, you could do it here. So any list can be a to-do list, but for me, it's really more like a shopping list. Or I mean, although our vacation list is a checklist, of things we need to do. I mean, so it works like that. It does have that satisfying when you tap a thing, it puts a strike through it so that you've checked it off your list. So that's really nice. So that's AnyList, and those are. I mean, I think that's a pretty good overview of to-do lists. And I want to kind of now shift to talking about project managers. And I kind of feel like to-do list is more in this category. A project, like I said, a project manager is something that manages a bigger project that has many tasks under it. And my choice for many years, going back to when this was a brand new product, is OmniFocus for the Mac. It's available on Mac, iOS, and actually a web version. And it's based on the David Allen's getting things done philosophy of having an inbox and processing your inbox and moving things into projects and contexts versus so you work in context. So you do all your things having to do with phone calls at once, whatever project it is, and that sort of thing. I do I don't follow it religiously, but OmniFocus works the way I think. It has great scripting support, so you have a lot of Apple scripts there that I use with it. On the iOS, it has great shortcut support. I've so customized it. I have most of my work is repeating projects. I'm doing the same thing over and over again. Every show has 15 steps to it that goes into a project for each episode of the show. And so I have a script that I run every time I set up a new show. I schedule a new show. The script runs and populates a project in OmniFocus with all my steps, with dates and that sort of thing. So the one complaint that I've heard from people is it's a steep learning curve to figure out OmniFocus. It's not for everyone. that said, it is a great program, and if you invest the time, it's well worth what you get out of it. But I've heard really good thing about the app Things, which is another Mac iOS app. I'm sorry, I don't have a lot of Windows and Android apps in this vein. I just don't know of them, and I don't hear people talk about great project manager apps as Microsoft Project, and that's about the only one I ever hear about from people. But Things, I hear good things about. I've tried it out. I've looked at it. It's a little more freeform, a little more. The design is pretty open and free-flowing, but powerful. Have either of you looked at Things at all as a project app?
No.
I've heard really good things. A lot of people who are into design, who love clean design, that sort of, they like it. It works for them. I list Fantastical in this category, but it's not.
I was wondering why.
Yeah, it's not. It's a calendar app, but it has project management like function. So it can put reminders in it. And in fact, you can have the reminders from your reminders app, your stock reminders app, show up in it. But one of the things it's great for is for scheduling things. So if you have meetings, whether in person like we used to, or virtual meetings, which most of us do now, you can use it for scheduling that. And one of the great features they've added recently is the ability to say, I have a Google Calendar, I'm scheduling a meeting on it, and it says, do you want to add a Zoom meeting or add a Google Meet meeting to it? And it will automatically set it up with your credentials. So you've already given it your account information, and it will set it up and send the invitation with the link and the password and all that information for you. And then when the time comes for the meeting, it pops up and says join meeting, and that's it. So I think of it sort of in that productivity project management area. It's sort of project manager adjacent, let's say.
Okay, because now you're making me want to go take another look at it, because I have it in the iOS version.
Right. Yeah.
And I was trying to use it as a Google Calendar, and I don't know if it was just too difficult or I lost interest or whatever. But if you're saying that it'll do something like that with Zoom, and I have to do like an entire Faith Formation calendar, I could probably do all the Zooms and set them all up. And
potentially,
I like this.
Yeah, potentially, it's just all you have to do is set as you're setting up the particular appointment or meeting. Just it offers, you just click a button, add a Zoom meeting or add a Google Meet meeting, and it does all of that for you. So yeah, and then you add the people and they get the invitation to it. So yeah, it's really great that way. And then one last one, which is not one I've used, but which one I've looked into when I was in my big hunt for a new grocery app, is one called Cozy Family Organizer, COZI. And this is more like a family project manager, a family manager app. It's designed for mom or dad, let's face it, probably mom, to set up the family calendars, appointments, and school things and sports and all the other things that go with it, as like so tracking school events. It has a shared grocery list. It's the features go way deep. So it's got a calendar, shopping list, to-do lists, recipes and meal planner, a family journal. There's a whole cozy culture that goes around it. It's just like a community that surrounds it of cozy users. It just sounds cozy. It's free in the basic, but I think there's a subscription model to it, and it turns out it wasn't for us because, well, Melanie would never go for it. She's organizing her life using through an app like this would never work for her. Which is
analog.
Fine. Yeah, she's more. I mean, she uses her phone and her computer for things, but she writes stuff down. I mean, getting her to use AnyList for a grocery app was a big deal, so that's fine. And I don't begrudge that. These things aren't for everyone, and if it doesn't work for you, that's fine. That's no judgment on you. Do what works. If a pad of paper is your to-do list manager, that's great. Use it. the important thing isn't that I get the right software. The important thing is that you get your things done. So whatever the tool is that helps you get your things done, use that tool. If one of these apps is that tool, then that's great. But if it isn't, if they become an obstacle to getting your things done, then throw them out and go back to a pencil and paper.
Or index cards.
Right. Oh, index. Oh, I've heard.
Or Evernote.
Yes, right. Yes. Exactly. I know people who still have a stack of index cards with a big, binder clip on it that they keep in their pocket, and that's their to-do list. So those are some ideas. Check them out. There's a lot of them have they'll have review copies you can get. What am I trying to say?
Trial.
Thank you. Trial or free trial, or they have a free tier. So it's pretty easy to try a lot of these out and check them out. And there's plenty of reviews. And if you go onto YouTube, you'll see people showing you how the different features and functions, usually independent folks, not the manufacturers themselves, the developers themselves. So you can find lots of information on these. So those are some ideas for folks. Does that sound good? I think we've covered that. I'm sure if the listener has any things that we've missed or any ideas or that you'd like to recommend, we'd love to hear about it. technology@sqpn.com. Send it along to us, and we'll talk about it on a future episode. So let's talk about a few headlines while we're at it. Pat, this headline I think you shared with me. AT&T claims that a phone made in 2019 will stop working, and it's urging users to upgrade even though they don't have to. What's that about? Do you know?
Basically, they were saying that phones that lacked a certain level of like the 3G phones, that they would stop working. And Verizon had actually already done that with the 3Gs a long time ago. But AT&T had let them continue to be on their network, and they're saying their towers, they have to, update their towers and get them ready for the new 5G and all that, and they just can't keep supporting that oldest one. But when they did that, they put out an announcement that panicked a lot of people, thinking that their phone was not going to work anymore.
Like starting today.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, as if it were going to be like imminent. And when they were really talking about next year, toward the end of the year.
Or 2022 even,
It was only certain models. Yeah. It wasn't, all the phones weren't going to start working if you bought them, 2 years ago.
Right.
Verizon handled a little bit better, I think, in terms of the way that they announced their things. But, it's just kind of, you have to look at the models, and it was and you've seen it in other ways when they were talking about whether, like the iPhone 5, you wouldn't want to have bought one and that be the one you're using in the future because it's just not going to be supported. Well, that sounds different than this phone. We have phones that won't work next year or coming up. So it's the way it was phrased, I think.
Right. The email didn't say you have 18 months. The email just says your device is not compatible with the new network, and you need to replace your phone. It's like, oh, what am I going to? I suddenly have to go out and buy a phone, which seems like that's a little bit. I think it feels like someone in marketing said, "Hey, here's an opportunity to get a bunch of people to buy phones."
Right, especially because they sell them too.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's when I read that whole thing, I was like, "Yep, somebody's trying to take advantage of the times."
Yes, yeah.
They're losing money somewhere, and they said, "How can we beef it up?"
Exactly.
Right. So don't worry about it, folks. If you have a 3G phone on AT&T, your phone will continue to work until 2022. That's not a guarantee, frankly, because AT&T could always change things. But that's what they're saying as of now, is that your phone will continue to work. But if you have a 3G phone, that's fairly old at this point. So you're probably due for an upgrade anyway. Let's talk about probably the biggest tech story right now, apart from a bunch of tech CEOs testifying to Congress, which is frankly not within the sort of thing we want to talk about on a regular basis. But there's a story about this social media app called TikTok, which we've talked about before. There is some politics surrounding them right now, which is the president has been saying that we might ban TikTok because it's owned by a company with ties to the Chinese Communist government, and there's some question of whether they're using the data they gather through their phones to spy on Americans and that sort of thing. And we've mentioned before that certain federal agencies have told their employees that they are not allowed to have TikTok on their even personal phones. And at least one, I think, one three-letter agency, I think it might be the NSA, has said no one in the home is allowed to have TikTok on their phone. So there is concern that, and there was a recent thing that came up with iOS 14 that showed that TikTok was perhaps doing something not kosher with data on the phone. So there's been some concern. So what do y'all I don't want to ask about the politics of it, but we have a couple of links here. One possibility is that the Microsoft might buy the American branch of the company.
Side of it,
which would be, I don't know that would satisfy the concerns because it would still be owned by China. And then the other question is that they might move the headquarters to outside of China to a third-party country. But again, I don't think that's changing the ownership of the company. It's just moving the headquarters. So what do y'all think of this? TikTok.
Well, I thought when they were talking about Microsoft buying it, that Microsoft could go in and clean up the places that the app was not behaving according to what we consider good security.
Right.
So that was my understanding, that they would buy that product and modify it.
Right. That would be the hope.
What I agree.
Yeah. They would, because I think they would end up having some liability in that if the app was still doing, let's just say, spying for the Chinese Communist government, which we're not sure it is, but that's the accusation. If the app were doing that, Microsoft would get pulled into that. So they would be in their best interest to make sure that the app was clean and not doing these things.
Right.
Which is just kind of ironic to be thinking of Microsoft cleaning up an app and making it run more efficiently.
and actually, they don't have near as many privacy concerns as some of the others, as far as, people complaining about privacy with them.
Yes, that is true.
So maybe they seem the cleanest of the alternatives in terms of how people would view them.
Yes, I think so. So that would be a positive, perhaps positive change to it. Would you recommend that anyone install the app on their phone at this point, or have it on their phone?
I don't.
I look at all this as you take a chance no matter what app it is, because I'll stick my foot in it with the Google apps. They're always feeding information to somebody. But for advertising, this one just seems to be feeding information to the Chinese government. We need to be careful with the apps we use and learn how to, if we can lock some of them down so that it doesn't give all our information away. But I think we've gotten to the point where we're just giving all. When you have devices like this that take in so much information that try to make our lives a lot easier, we're going to end up giving up part of our information to someone. And it is part of what it is. Now, it doesn't mean you throw up your hands on the whole thing, but TikTok is definitely one of those apps that needs to be looked at because of where it comes from and because of who has designed it. If Microsoft,
and because of who it's being used by is the very young.
Right.
That's more my concern. Because yes, I have Google products and I use those, and I know it's tracking me, and I need it to track me because I depend upon it to be able to go back to my history or to see where I've been 2 months ago on a particular day. I need that. But where it's gathering information about young children, and that
right.
is no longer private, that's what bothers me, and that's why
right.
I say I don't recommend it for anyone.
Right. It's one thing to understand what Google is taking from us and who Google is. It's another thing to be blasé about, not blasé, but to let a foreign power with its own agenda taking that data and doing God knows what with it. And that's
right.
That's what I get concerned with. Yeah, I wouldn't put TikTok on any device that I own, or
No.
I would recommend that anyone who had it, I would recommend they take it off. And there are probably other ones. I know people who don't install Zoom on any device that they can avoid it because of related concerns with Zoom.
Well, there were some mistakes made in the beginning where traffic was being routed through a foreign country. That's not true anymore.
Right.
So they've made a lot of security changes. So I don't feel that once a company has made those changes that I hold it against them.
Right. Exactly.
Same here.
Yep. Yeah, same here. Zoom they made some serious mistakes. I've talked about before about a bug on Mac OS that made it impossible to uninstall it completely. They had this thing where you'd uninstall it and it would reinstall itself. They claimed it was a bug. So there was a way to go in and just tear it out by the roots, which I did. And then you put at the time it was, you put a folder named a certain name that prevented anything and you locked that folder, prevented it from reinstalling itself. And I did that. I barred the gates, basically.
Wow.
But they, like you said, they've fixed it. They've made things better. I've opened up the door to them. I've used Zoom for different things. I don't completely trust them, but I'd rather use other things. But you're right. If they make a serious amendment to amend their ways and they make an act of contrition, I will forgive them. 7 times 70. So.
Well, and I have people that need different products for different uses, for instance, and some of them are easier to install and to use for the average person. And so, like for Google, some people, if they don't have a Google account, that kind of means that they really can't use Google Meet.
Right.
But it does have the nice thing of captioning, automatic captioning on it that makes it easy for the hard of hearing, etc. So some people I recommend Zoom, other people I recommend Meet. Skype is another alternative. I mean, so you got the three biggies there.
Right. Yeah, use it's good to have a diversity of tools for the different purposes for different people. All right, so I think that's good for headlines this week, and let's move on to our picks of the week. Joanne, why don't you go first with your pick this week? What do you have for us?
Well, the faith formation / musician is now branching out into live streaming director. We have, I never would have dreamed back in January that I would be doing this, but we finally installed 2 very high-powered cameras in one of our collaborative churches in order to live stream. And when everything was said and done and they put it in and they said, now, here is your software. And I went, OBS, I know that. Open Broadcast System is a project. It's an open software project. And it's free, and it basically is a television studio on your computer. And you attach your cameras to it, and you can create scenes, and you can create multi-views, and you put your audio through it. In fact, right now I'm trying to figure out how to match the audio to the actual, moving of the mouth, because there's a little bit of a delay. So, but I'm finding out that it has a lot of other uses other than this big, camera system we have at the church. I put my iPhone onto it and started playing with it at home between my display and my iPhone. So it's like, ooh, that has podcast written all over it, doesn't it?
Yep.
So I think it has a bit of a learning curve. Because if you're not familiar with, this type of a thing, or if you've never wanted to play TV producer like I have, it might be a little daunting. But if you there are lots of YouTube. I was told, oh, go on YouTube. You'll find all these people teaching you. Nah, I just started playing with it.
Right.
Just try this, try that. So it's intuitive as well. So it's free. And if you want to, in this area of Zoom, in this area of everybody trying to reach out to another, this is another one of those tools in the tool basket. The other one that I had suggested a while ago,
Streamlabs.
Streamlabs.
Yeah.
Yeah. That one was harder, believe it or not. I don't know if the iOS version doesn't line up. I think it has more issues with it. I kept trying to look at it going, I don't understand this. And for me, that says a lot. But the OBS is a lot easier to manage.
Because Streamlabs is based on OBS, but...
Right, it is, but it's an iOS. It's so you can use your iPad, and I think there's just too much falderall and fiddle-dee-dee to try to do that.
Okay,
so this one's a lot easier,
and it's been around a long time. I mean, it didn't just come out. So, and I've heard a lot of good things about it. It's very powerful. And,
it is,
and it's free and open source, so that's good. Excellent. Pat, do you have a pick for us?
Well, I've kind of waffled on my pick. Last time I talked about Google has now built into their Chrome browser a way that you can do remote assistance with somebody else. And I have been using it between upstairs and downstairs. And this week I found out that Windows 10 actually has built in a quick assist. Now, they've always had a remote desktop version that you had to be the Windows Pro. You had to have the professional model. But this is built into Windows 10 Home, which I was very surprised at. Of course, it's still only Microsoft to Microsoft. But what that means is that if your Aunt Mabel needs some help and she's on Windows 10 and you're on Windows 10, it's built into the operating system. You just you do the start and the search for Quick Assist, and it pops right up and says, oh, I want to be helped. And the other person gets I want to be the helper. And then the helper gets the number from the person they're helping, and they're in. And so it means that you don't have the problem of, okay, now download this, now click on this, now tell me your number. It's just built in. And so that I thought was kind of a nice alternative for people rather than having to do TeamViewer or some of these other things that were you had to walk through somebody through downloading something.
Very nice. Very nice. That's very handy. Having these free tools is the best part.
Cross-platform would be nice. That's why I've got other tools when I'm going cross-platform. And the Google tool works cross-platform. So
Right. So my pick is related to this new MacBook Pro that I've been using, and so it's kind of a two-layer pick. So the first layer is this app called Better Touch Tool, and it's a utility that lets you take your trackpad on your MacBook, or if you have a Magic Trackpad for your Mac or whatever, and it lets you create new gestures, new taps, or if you tap 3 times in the top right corner, and you can do different things. And so Better Touch Tool lets you set up all of these tap and click and gesture controls beyond what macOS lets you do. On top of that is something called Golden. I should add that when Apple came out with the Touch Bar Max, with that little tiny screen at the top of the keyboard on some of the MacBooks, when they came out with that, Better Touch Tool added functionality to control that as well. And then this other guy came along and created what he calls Golden Chaos Btt, which sits on top of, or it's a set of presets that go into Better Touch Tool, and it completely replaces the touch bar user interface and makes it actually useful. And what it does is it puts controls up there related to whatever app you happen to be in at the time or whatever context you're working in. So if you're in messages, it could be showing you all the different emoji across there, so you can tap on emoji. It can throw widgets up there. It's got all these different functions that you can add. It really makes the touch bar into a useful, as people say, into a useful part of the computer instead of redundant. Like, I don't need a OK or cancel button on the touch bar when I'm looking at the screen and I'm already, hitting the return key. You know what I mean? It's like a lot of what Apple has built into it is sort of redundant, but this really makes it useful. So the Better Touch Tool is available as part of the SetApp subscription. So if you have SetApp, you're already paying for SetApp. Better Touch Tool is in there. Otherwise, it's a paid tool. I'm not sure exactly how much Better Touch Tool is, but Golden Chaos is donationware, so it's free, and you can tip the guy who created it if you want.
I'm going to have to look into that because all I've done with that touch bar since I've gotten it is just put the F numbers and that's all I've done.
Right. Yeah, that's the thing. Or replace the escape key. That's missing.
I use the fingerprint thing all the time.
Oh,
but
yes.
the touch bar, I kind of look at and say, oh, is it still there?
Exactly. Are you still hanging out on top of there? You've taken up space? Yeah. Oh, the Touch ID on the MacBook Pro is amazing. Let me tell you, I want Touch ID on my iMac. Or there has been rumors that the Silicon Macs might have Face ID built into them. So that would be very interesting. That would make those cameras useful.
Well, I really like the fact that my watch can unlock my my Mac when I walk up to it, too.
Yes.
That's really been nice.
When it does work. It works for me about 80% of the time. Today,
watch it, Dom.
Today, my iMac did not want to unlock with my while I'm wearing my watch for whatever reason. It just some days it doesn't do that, but when it does do that, it is awesome to have that happen that way. All right, so those are our picks of the week, and that will bring us to a close of another episode. Before we do, we want to take a moment to thank our patrons who make it possible for us to create the Secrets of Technology, including Chris B., Jackie S., Stephen B., Daniel S., and Hillary G. Their generous donations at sqpn.com/give make it possible for us to continue the Secrets of Technology and all the shows at StarQuest. You can join them by visiting sqpn.com/give. So that's it from us. What did you think of our discussion, especially the productivity apps, to-do list managers, project managers? Let us know by commenting on the show at sqpn.com/technology or the SQPN Facebook page, facebook.com/StarQuestMedia, or send an email to technology@sqpn.com. And you'll find links from our discussion and our picks of the week on our show notes at sqpn.com. Remember to like each episode of Secrets of Technology on Facebook. Retweet us on Twitter, where we're at SQPN. Leave comments there. We love to engage with you on social media and have fun conversations, and ask us questions. We love to answer your questions as well. Until next time, Pat Scott, thank you for joining me and sharing the Secrets of Technology.
It's been fun.
Joanne Mercier, thank you as well.
Always a pleasure.
And once again, I'm Dom Bettinelli. Thank you for listening to the Secrets of Technology on StarQuest.